This is AV SuperFriends Perspectives, a collection of interviews, discussions, and presentations from conferences, trade shows, and events that just don't fit either of the other two shows. Some are long, some are short, but they'll all have valuable insights, useful information, or just good conversation with thought leaders and subject matter experts. And now, the AV SuperFriends.
All right, well, once again, live to us. Anyway.
Live to tape.
I'm here, and Chris is here, and our next guest
is
Robert
not
Durbin.
here.
Robert Durbin, you are here, in fact, with us in real life at NWMET, correct?
Yes, thank you. In the
Robert,
present
you are with Crestron as a company of sorts, right? They pay
Yes.
you some type of money to do some things.
Yes.
Okay.
That how that works?
Yes, I'm an A+ representative, so I am basically technically business development. But my role is really to support your goals, whatever they are, and to filter. And by being a filter, it's helpful that I learn from all the schools I go to, and often I can connect people and help them build a new dynamic.
All right.
I love the challenge of problem solving. It invigorates me, and as many people know who've dealt with me, I really, really believe that I want you to have the right solution. So I'm willing to loan it to you long term and torture the heck out of it, because I don't want you to buy it and go, I bought it because it said it would do all this. Okay, well, I want to know that it does that for you in your environment.
So maybe people don't know what an A+ rep even is. Maybe they're not Crestron. Maybe they have no idea. Can you explain what it is that an A+ rep actually does and what?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I am an advocate for my schools. That is, so if there's ever a challenge, discussion, or anything else that involves the dealer, integrator, or a box reseller, if they're a self-installed school, or the company, I am the one in your corner who fights those internal battles. And my director knows that and supports that and keeps dealers away from monopolizing me or other things. I'll work with them to help the school, but I work on your behalf. And the school has to maintain that relationship, and I can play the heavy. And I learned that term from the Hollywood movie. Did anyone see the Tarantino Hollywood?
Which one was it?
With
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
That one. Yeah, that's where I learned the expression "the heavy."
Oh.
I'm like, if you need to keep a good, positive relationship because you're going to be working with this integrator for many years, I can go be the heavy for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it takes, and they know that, well, I work for that company, so I'm doing my job, and it's not you. But it also allows
you get to be the bad guy if it comes down to it.
If it comes down to it,
Good
yes.
cop, bad cop?
Yeah, exactly.
And you've met me in real life. I'm just nice, and so even the dealers that I do have to get heavy with, I don't have to get very heavy because I'm so nice normally that there's like the slight change. They're like, uh-oh.
Well, it's like that whole thing. Like I have one of my employees. He was in the military, and he said, it's one thing when somebody's screaming at you. You're like, okay, you get that. But when somebody's really upset and they were really calm with you, you're like, Robert, listen. I didn't really approve of what it was. But like, you got the attention, right? You're there, and you can be calm, and you get a whole different level of response by just being calm and collective. And I think you do have that disposition about you, so you can be heavy in a very heavy way.
Yes.
Well, let's bring it up to higher ed, and we got the A+ thing, and so you just recently shared that you're doing a lot of data stuff, right? So what's data saying about like what's different now in Crestron and higher ed, pandemic wise, things like that, without getting salesy on us, because we don't want you to sell stuff to us.
Anyway.
What's Crestron doing for the higher ed vertical? What do you think that, like, where are they at?
So we're actually redesigning products based on direct feedback. So having Dan, who is George's son, now as the CEO, has been the last step in the corporate change that I have been dying for. So his responsiveness and importance upon education has created an environment where even the EVPs are now incredibly focused on it, and we go and we want to know what the end users think. So that's why the Crestron Experience Center tour, like when I was able to do that many, many moons ago, and I'm happy to do that for schools because I want them to know and to meet and to see why we're different. I mean, being a private company, not public, we don't answer to shareholders. And when Dan was interviewed, he said that flat out. I want to answer to my customers. I want to give them what they need. If I have to go have a bad quarter to get to the right solution, I don't want to have to, be beholden unto the shareholder. I would be beholden unto the client. Now, I can tell you a personal story that's a little weird about Crestron, but how I specified them when I was a consultant into University of Washington. And this is like 15 years ago when AMX and Crestron were just kind of neck and necking, but I had met George, had a conversation, and he told me that he would always be investing 30% at least back into R&D and engineering. And I have a finance background, so I looked at AMX's balance sheets, and they were doing about 7% R&D. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to go, I don't have to know statistics or finance to go, 30% technology, 7%. This race is going to get really ugly really quick. And then a lot of unfortunate things happened with AMX, and I was very fond of them. I actually learned to program their systems first because it was many, many moons ago. But yeah, so my story with George. And yeah, he was a really great engineer, but he was not a great business runner, so Randy ran the business.
He was a tinkerer.
His son is both, though. His son is both, and he cares about people.
Okay. All right. So what do you, looking at the higher ed vertical, where we're at now, like, and things have happened over the last 2 years. We won't talk about it, but there's changes that happened. We've talked about it enough.
Something happened. I missed it.
It happened. Trust me, there was things that happened. What do you think that means to kind of what schools should be looking at? Has it changed what that relationship with Crestron and our A+ reps? Has anything changed with the asks that you see? Like, has there been a change of approach to kind of how solutions are being provided?
Yes. We've actually even engineered new switches, the HDPSs, because the DMPS line, the DMPS 3s, which range from the 50 to the 350, are hugely popular. But when we've been interviewing schools, and he's been really good about this, like this information goes right up to him every week. They're saying, well, we don't use the amplifier, or we love it, but we don't use this, or we don't use that feature. So we made this switcher that doesn't have the controller built in, and it has a DM out that's DM Lite, and a mirrored HDMI. And so you literally have you can get a 4x2, you can get a 6x2, multiple versions of this, but it has the DSP, the mic inputs, the mixing, all that good stuff. But now even a different control system could use it. Wouldn't matter.
Right. So it's kind of it's more Swiss Army-ish, right? So we can kind of put it in to do some specific problem solving, and maybe not just be shelling out a bunch of money for things you may only be using a portion of. You can be more intentional about what your solution may be. So. Like that. Chris, what do you think? We're all, I'm not going to be shy. We use a lot of Crestron stuff. Are there things that we want to see potentially coming up from our vantage points? I can tell you, we're going full on AV over IP. That's my
sure. I give you free product ideas all day. So here's what you do: you got to go down to the hardware store, you get yourself a pair of 10 snips. You take that DMPS.
If I already own one, do I have to still buy them?
Buy some new ones. I want these to be sharp. Take that DMPS, you cut a big old hole in the back, you take an NVX encoder, you jam it in there.
Jam it in there?
Because for whatever reason that doesn't exist yet. So why no DMPS with NVX? I guess that's the first question. And then the other thing I'm going to bring up is you guys have an issue with the DM branding. Now, when I got my NVX cert, it did not say DM NVX. It said NVX. And now everything is DM. To the point where now you got DM NVX, you got DM proper, you have DM Lite, and then you have DM Lite that is HD-based compatible and some that aren't, and it gets real messy real quick.
That's what your A+ is for.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, honestly, to keep designers and integrators honest. And that's why one of the things that you ask about metrics, so I'm sorry to circle back on this, but this is something that really could help and help all of us, even the chip issues. Communicating with your A+, what's coming down the pipeline or what do we need, then we put that in the system, and the product managers are looking at the inventory ordering, and we even are flying in 2 planes full of chips every week because most of our factories are in North America and we own them. So as soon as we get the chips, we can build them. We have all this stuff. We heard a great internal meeting about how these are all built. We're just waiting on these TI chips. The second we get them, boom, 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 they're out the door within 8 hours. So great information in that arena. Yeah. Is that helpful? But the NVX thing, here's the big thing. What if it was in the future like Crestron Connected?
What part was Crestron Connected?
what if NVX was like Crestron Connected? It's like HD Base T, where you just plug in one cable.
So Mark and I have been talking about that we have so many AV over IP systems in the most generic sense, but there's no interoperability right now because even though most of them are based on similar codecs and running similar technologies, they're all still very proprietary at this point. So let me stop that.
Oh,
Is it Christmas all of a sudden?
I did want to add one thing.
Yeah.
No, we'll just keep going.
Directly based
Ignore that.
on Mark's ask about NVX, you said, I want to be able to deal with my DM. As a direct result of that, I was able to come back to you not that long afterwards and tell you, guess what?
The 760.
It's going into production. And I didn't know the model number yet, but it became the 760, and that's because of you.
And we've used that. And in active learning rooms, we've taken that as a quick way from our infrastructure, come up wall HDMI with some simple transmitter, whatever it is, just dump it into there and boom, we're off. We're NVX ready.
And we were talking about one hypothetical, the thing that had always been asked for, a movable podium in a large room, which is a nightmare. And if you had traditional DM, forget about it. You're running too many cables, too expensive. But you have network jacks all over the room. I'm like, okay. Now, if we have this 760 thing, you could have a green cable or some way it's easy to identify it and go roll it anywhere you want in the room. Just make sure to plug it into the green before you go.
Yeah, which is what we use that philosophy in our faculty media center as portable and flexible infrastructure. So it's all just put it on there. There's your AV over IP network. As long as it hits that, it's plumbed to work and things all communicate accordingly, right? So
thank you, Mark. You made Crestron a better place.
Hey, there we go.
So I will say to your question, Robert, about the what if NVX was as ubiquitous as Crestron Connected. If Crestron Connected, that built-in library of control commands on top of the HD Base T flavor, single cable drives all that stuff.
On top of USB.
Who's extending USB these days, right?
We do it too.
I get it. I saw the announcement this morning too. One of the issues we run into, is there are form factors, and forgive me, I can't remember the part number, but there is an NVX version for OPS slots, which is very attractive from the standpoint of display, plug this in, it's done, which is kind of what we're getting at, right?
Yes.
It was interesting to me when that was announced a couple of years ago at Infocom. That was like the and we forgot this product too. And I'm like, you guys just missed the bus on the best product you just announced. So it's at times like that. It's like there's like a general disconnect on what we find, as you just mentioned, Mark's very specific scenario that became a product, and solves a very specific need, but isn't necessarily always like what gets the attention. Instead, it's like, here's yet another thing over here. I'm like, I have no need for that.
Well, but the other thing is I have schools who have the infrastructure in place for their DM, and they don't want to get rid of it. So that's why we've supported that platform for so long. I mean, I have
I don't think it's going anywhere.
No, it shouldn't go anywhere, because I think that's people's.
I have 2 series DMPSs still out there.
There's people that if I walked into a school and I knew I had like solid DM/HD Base T infrastructure, and like every room had that, they're set up to convert to AV over IP. Yeah. Like they're ready. They're right there.
Yeah, I'll re-terminate those cables and throw those endpoints away and put the new ones in, and it works fine.
Right, exactly. And that was the same progression. We went from QM to DM to AV over IP. Like that's the promise of reusing infrastructure, right? And
you skipped the QM to DM.
Well, yeah, that was a special. Nobody has. I'm trying to remove those memories from my mind right now.
We'll have to actually we'll have to make a trip to Two Towns someday.
Yeah, exactly,
and wash that away.
All right.
But Christopher, you were just saying.
I forget what I was saying. What was I saying?
It's okay. It's one time. Oh no, the D80, which is the piece you're talking about.
Yeah.
One of the other things that most people don't realize is it's true NVX endpoint in that if that display has 232, guess what? You can control the 232 through it. If it has USB, you can even do the USB through it. I mean, it's one cable delivering all of that. Now, the future. Here's in my happy world prediction. We are not that far away from the time when displays will be efficient enough that it literally will be one Cat 5.
That's the magic unicorn. So
that's the unicorn of the future.
We're waiting for that. I mean, I think we just talked about that. We saw that proliferation with HD Base T / I don't know. I'll call out Panasonic and Display Link and all that stuff. And that stuff was kind of
we saw that very much with cameras as they became more efficient. You can now run those all day long over PoE would not need local power. Whereas, 5 years ago maybe, if I had a really nice PTZ camera, I needed local power to drive that.
Right.
And I don't now. So,
things are becoming simpler and more efficient.
I don't know. The last I heard, and this was several years ago, but 40 inches about the largest they could power over low voltage cabling, structured cabling.
Was that PoE Ultra or?
I don't remember what it was. It was Altinex talking about it.
Oh, okay.
It was, yeah.
Well, Altinex had that like voodoo crazy line.
Well, they still
thing
do that.
was just-
They'll run that all day long. Just don't cut into that. But, and they were working with, I think it was LG, and they got to like 40 inches, and it was like a 40-inch 1080p panel. They could do that on structure cable below 100 volt, so it would be limited voltage or limited energy, low voltage, and then could be done by structured cabling. But I don't know where they are on that now. So.
Okay. So the interesting thing is, I've had some conversations with a lot of people about this, not just Crestron people, but I tend to have a slightly broader circle, and they said, well, even if I had to use 2 right now, I would be okay with that. And that got me thinking. I'm like, well, there's PoE Ultra. That's a lot more power you can push down over that wire. What else?
Yeah.
What else do you want to do with it? I mean, it gets interesting if literally the only thing I had to do, because if this is true at your schools, and let me know. To have an electrical drop is super expensive, right?
No, we just talked about this.
Oh, you're kidding. Okay.
We're not. It is not scalable to have to call out.
So the ballpark number I
$1,000.
use to say, I use $1,500.
Yeah.
If I say I need to add a power and wall box in that wall, it's $1,500. If I'm adding low voltage,
but
just
that doesn't mean I'm necessarily willing to pay $1,500 more for a product that doesn't need that outlet.
No. I entirely understand that.
But yes, so if I'm doing a camera, let's say it's camera, because that's you can power that, and I can put in a USB camera which requires local power. That's $1,500 on top of the cost of the camera to do that, roughly, give or take. If I know I can run it over PoE or UPoE, then it's just my cost for pathway to get there. So, which would be significantly lower. So yes, that is an issue. There's a lot of reasons for that cost, but it's basically because you're adding on to the existing electrical infrastructure of the space, which can raise all sorts of other ramifications.
Oh, of course.
Depending on the building, of course.
Right. I worked at Sparling before it was Stantec, so I actually started as an installer because I'd worked for a Japanese bank, and if you understand from the beginning, then you're better at what you can do. And it's helped me many times, and I'd love to get involved, and when you guys involve me, I love it. I really enjoy it. The camera thing and the power boxes. So the other thing, I just wanted to shameless plug here, but the NVX works on Cat5e. So if you were remodeling, don't pay to have that wire yanked out. I saw a school bid where I'm like, what's this? And they're like, that's what they're charging us to take all the Cat5e out of the walls. I'm like,
so we did what that entire building of DM upgrades on old QM, the integrated Ethernet over QM.
Yeah.
And Crestron all day long was like, that's not, please do not. We're like, it works all day. I don't care. So
I did it.
I get it. So
So I'd like to see like where we are in AV over IP, and NVX could get there. And you mentioned and maybe tiptoed into it, like if it was Crestron connected-ish, like do we think we're going to see a time where endpoints being displays and the like will have the capacity to decode a off-the-shelf AV over IP wrapped transport? Like that's where I think we want to get to that holy grail, one wire. Just like we kind of got there with the DMs, the HC-based Ts, but now everything's back to an endpoint and then reconverting, flavoring, and injecting back in over an HDMI or whatever it is, right? And so can we get back to a true one-wire solution over AV over IP?
Well, I can't. There are certain things I can't say, but I can say this. The interest level and the number of manufacturers interested since we began pondering this as a concept has grown by tenfold.
And if I showed you an example and said, look at what's behind curtain number 1 and called it, I don't know, NDI.
just
I'm just throwing it out there. NDI, we'll call it.
As a name, yeah.
We know that the manufacturers have the capacity to put that chip in there to do it. Is there something that rhymes with that coming soon? Just
MDI, yes.
I know nothing.
That's fair. I mean, I think we know where we want to move to. I think the industry's moving there. I think it's a matter of just kind of staying along for the ride, so to speak. And
I wanted to put in one other thing. The round room.
Link 100.
Yeah. If anybody listening to this podcast has no idea what I'm talking about, you owe it to yourself to learn.
Go in there.
I've rewired much of that.
Yeah,
way, so.
we've been in there. Yeah, we happen to have been there. Well, Robert.
Wait.
Oh,
I got
go.
another free product idea here. This one's come up before.
I do like this.
So what you want to do is you want to get yourself a 1974 Dodge Power Wagon. You want to take your standard NVX 360 series boxes.
Mm-hmm.
You want to keep the driver's door open as you're driving it, and you want to grind down those wings that are on every one of them. I understand why they're there. Make them detachable or something, but because they don't fit in a half rack with those there.
Oh, Chris and the half rack thing.
Or
we had
a
lot of discussion about half rack.
Even
stuff.
not half rack. They don't. Two of them don't fit side by side in a rack space. Yes, you can flip one over and mount it upside down to the shelf above. I know.
No,
all the
but
tricks,
this is thank you. No, this is absolutely good
also
stuff.
in the same form factor of the new one, the HDPS 401 maybe.
Sure.
It's half rack size.
Mm-hmm.
Give me that same form factor with NVX on it. Put all the ports on the back because NVX right now ports are on both sides, and I have to integrate around that. So these are free ideas.
Yeah, I love it.
And Robert's writing
None of
down
these are
notes.
new ideas
He's
either. These are all
writing
things that have been
down
shouted
notes.
at you guys for years.
No, you'd be surprised. And here's the funny thing. I'm going to go back. This is going to go in my report, which goes to John Houlihan, National A+. And so we all
And then
get
you'll
to
send him the link
yeah.
to the show and be like, "This happened.
Yeah,
This was
and
real."
He is going to send this directly to Dan Feldstein. And he will read this and go, they want all the ports on one side. Oh. Well, are there obstacles to that? Or, is it
Also,
an
by the way,
engineering problem?
speaking of ports on one side, God help you if you do a DM RMC, was it the
200, 201 or whatever
with
it was?
a dorsal port? Do you remember that one?
Dorsal port?
It was on the top. It exists. I'll look it up.
It's terrible in all its
Oh,
terribleness.
It's making me
It was made to
queasy.
be put into a box and
Yep. It had a very
spigot came
specific
into the
purpose,
back.
but it was terrible. So
Well, we've definitely done some terrible things. There's no doubt about that.
I'd like to find the person who thought that was a good idea and flog them repeatedly.
Yeah.
Because that,
Yeah.
to your point about working with consultants previously, that ended up on a lot of building specs, not realizing that this thing on paper looks fine, but now all the ports are here, and this port
which you never get to again.
that was getting smashed behind things and stuff.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Well, Robert,
Oh,
thanks for coming in.
my pleasure.
Spending
Thank you
some
so
time
much
with
for
us.
having me.
Absolutely. We'll get
I
back
look
together at
forward
some
to it.
point. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you and talk
Oh, of course.
all kinds of weird whatever it is they want to talk to you about, how can they get a hold of you?
The best way is probably phone or text or email. And it's my work one is 628-249-8310. My email is rdurbin@crestron.com. And, of course, if we chat for a while and you want to send me things that are not work appropriate, I'll give you my personal cell.
Perfect. Well, any last words, Chris? Everything we're good?
no, I think this has been great. I appreciate the time. Love your insight on things, and yes, we definitely want to make sure that the needs of the higher ed vertical, the desires, the wants, the demands of the higher ed vertical do have a voice at Crestron.
And I'm happy to report that that voice is now coming top down, not just us pushing up all the time.
That's good to hear.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Robert. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a wonderful show.
Well, that wraps up another episode of AV SuperFriends Perspectives. If you have a perspective to share, you can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV SuperFriends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients.